Hi, this is Rob Blagojevich, and as promised, I'm here to show you a step-by-step approach to how you make a face mask. Now, it's easier than you might think, and yet it's challenging. I've never sewed anything in my whole life until I began doing this, and it's a learning process. In any event, it's rewarding once you get one done. Okay, so let's get started. All right, to begin with, you got to have the right materials. You can't do any of this without 100% cotton. That's first and foremost. Second, you need elastic. And third, you need thread. Okay, so what about the cotton? Where can you get the 100% cotton? You can find it from old t-shirts, old pillowcases, and in my case, here's what I've discovered. I've discovered that a great source of material for these masks are the old dress shirts you haven't worn in 8 years, for whatever the reason. Shirts like these. This shirt here in particular is good quality, 100% cotton that I used to wear when I was governor. I think I remember this shirt. I think I gave a speech in it. In any event, no more speeches for that shirt and no more speeches for me, but that's a whole different conversation. Once you get this material, that's the cotton. Here's the elastic that you get. And then here's the thread. Then you can begin the process of getting the tools that you need. Here's what you need. Not necessarily all of them, because there's substitutes, but in a perfect world, you'd have this right here, a sewing machine. This is something that you need some skill on. I've never ever used one. I tried to use it the other day to begin this process, and Patty and I discovered, as did Amy and Annie, our daughters, that I was jamming up the production line because I just wasn't any good at it. And so my family, my daughters and my wife, impeached and removed me from the sewing machine. That's something I know something about. The first time that happened to me was wrong, but this second time was right. Now, if you can't use the sewing machine, then there's nothing better than a good old-fashioned needle and thread. This is how you can make the mask if you can't use the sewing machine, and that's how I've been working on these. But be careful. There's an occupational hazard to this. You might cut yourself or stick yourself, which I did yesterday. I said when I came home from where I was that I've been bruised and battered and bloodied, and I was a little bit bloody, but anyway, all's well that ends well. I'm okay, and I'm going to fight through the pain, and I'm going to play even though I'm injured. Anyway, so that's the needle and the thread. After this, what you need are scissors. Are tremendously necessary, but better than scissors is this thing here called a cutting tool. It's a rotary cutting tool, which my wife Patty uses to cut out fabric, and which we're using to cut the shirts on the pattern, which is something that you absolutely have to have. An iron would be nice. It's not necessary, but it would be nice if you have an iron so that when the shirts come out of the dryer, because you should wash the shirts or the cotton that you're using, you can make it wrinkle-free and the whole process goes smoother and the end product is nicer if it's been ironed. You've got to have this. You're going nowhere without this. You're without any direction if you don't have a pattern. So this is what we have. And Patty was able to get this pattern, I think, from a New York Times article. We're using the medium size to make our masks. And last but not least, here's what I've discovered. You got to have patience. And remember this, the race is won by the tortoise, not by the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay. Oh, one last thing I forgot. You got to have pins. You can't get the job done unless you have pins. You'll see as this unfolds why you need the pins. And you can put the pins in this tomato thing. And they stick in there. And then you just take them out and put them back in. So you got to have this, pins in the tomato. After you wash, dry, and iron, you begin the process of the cutting process, okay? And that's obviously necessary. Now it's time to get to work. A little less conversation, a little more action. Okay, so you take the cutting tool or the scissors. I'm taking the cutting tool, and you get this, you get the fabric, the cotton, and you put it on the mold here, this pattern. Again, we use the medium, and after you end up cutting, you end up getting something like this. You get, in fact, this is what you get because it's all to specifications. Now the perfect way to do it is you cut 4 on 1. So you got 4 pieces for one because you want them all to match. After you get done cutting, your shirt or your material looks like this, which is a metaphor for what happened in my political career. Okay, so what you do is you take the 4 pieces and divide them into pairs, and each pair you sew together. So this is the time that you utilize the sewing machine or the needle and the thread. And so the way you do it is you sew this part right here, you see? And you go all across and you put the 2 sides together and you end up having this, which is half of a mask. And then the next step is the following. You grab the piece that you just sewn, the 2 pieces together, and now it's time to reach out for the elastic. And so here's what you do next. You take the 2 pieces that you just sewed, and you open it up like this, and you put the elastic like this on all 4 corners of this piece, okay? Then you go over here and you get some elastic this way on this half mask. Be careful now, you don't do it on this side where you have the seam, okay? Now, you can sew this either with a sewing machine or the needle and thread. So once you get that done, here's what it's gonna look like. It's gonna look like this. You got a half mask, see? So we're halfway there. Okay, so what's next? Okay, we take this half mask that we made and we lay it down. You put the elastic on the inside, okay? Why? Because here's what you're gonna do. You're about to make a sandwich. That's what Patty calls it, and I guess that's what they do in the sewing world. They call this a sandwich, an elastic sandwich. So here's what it is. It's a good way to explain it because you take the other piece, the other half piece, and you take the finished side of that half piece and you put it on top of the finished side of the other half piece that has the elastic on it. And here's what you do. Take a look. You put it like that and press it. The elastic's on the inside. You have now made yourself an elastic sandwich. Now, unlike a real sandwich, this elastic sandwich, this mask requires that you hold them together, okay? What do you use then? You use the pins. This when you bring the pins into action off of this tomato thing, and you grab the pins and start pinning this up. So it looks something like this. And it's a bit delicate, okay? This is how it is, and gotta watch yourself. Anyway, here it is, minefield of pins. Now you're ready to go to the next level. Now, one option is the sewing machine. With the pins in place, you put this close to being a completed mask in the sewing machine. And in our home, because I've been impeached from the sewing machine, this is where I hand it off to Patty. I do the good old-fashioned needle and thread, but you gotta be careful here. This is, like I said, a minefield of pins. Then you got this, and as a result, you could end up having this, which is what happened here. But okay, what I like to do is I like to go clockwise, and I like to leave this long stretch open till the very end. Sew down this way, then take a left, keep going through this line here, then take a right until you get to the top. Now, when you sew, this portion should be about 3/8 of an inch from the edge, all the way around. And then you got this last leg that you got to do. So you sew portions of it this way and portions of it this way, but you must leave 2 inches of an opening in this section right here. And when you get that, then you're ready to go to the next step. Okay, so now this has been sewn, and it's time to take the pins out. So I'm going to do that. You take it out like that, you put it in that tomato, the red tomato thing. Hold it. You got to be careful there because you can stick yourself. Okay, then you do that. Needless to say, I'm not the fastest worker, but you got to have patience. Now the pins are out, and I'm going to show you this. Now get ready for some magic. Okay, now, here's the best part of it. What you do is you take what you've got already sewn up. The needles are now out, needle free. And then you reach inside, okay? Don't forget that 2-inch hole that you have. You reach way inside, and with your fingers, you grab the point. See that? And take it like this. And then what you do is you pull it up and then out through the hole. See what I'm doing here? Like that. And turn it inside out. And I like to do it slowly. I don't like to let anybody rush me. As far as I'm concerned, there's no rush, because you just got to methodically do this as if you were running a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And unfortunately, the crisis we're facing is a marathon and not a sprint. But after you talk your way through this, you've hit the jackpot. Here's what you got. Okay, the last step is this. You pretty much have it now, except one last thing that we have to do, and that is we got to close up that 2-inch opening. And again, it's the sewing machine or the needles and the thread, the needle and the thread. So you sew that up, and then what you have is you can puff this up a little bit, and you got yourself a mask. I'll show you a finished product. Here's a finished one, which we've completed, one of many, and I'll show you what it looks like when you put it on, like this. You can't go like this. It's taken me the longest time to stop doing it like this and pull it down. I've learned the hard way. You go like this. And then what you do is you put it behind your ears, and there you are. And you got to cover your nose too. And there's your mask. See that? And you're done. How's the hair? Okay, now that the CDC has recommended that we all wear masks out and about, if we're not just going to be all the time in the shelter-in-place circumstances, we're going to all need masks. So making these masks at home is a nice thing to do for your family, for your loved ones and your friends, and it's a wonderful thing to do for others. And if you have the time, and I think most of us do, and you want to avoid being stir crazy, what a wonderful thing it is to make a lot of these masks and donate them to hospitals, to nurses, to the healthcare professionals who are on the front lines fighting this invisible virus, fighting this pandemic. So there's a great need to have as many of these masks as possible. So as many as you can make, that would be fantastic. And then the last thing I would say is, on this day where it was 52 years ago that Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, that we remember some of the wonderful things that he said and what he lived for, and that was to serve others. And these are challenging times, these are frightening times, but these are also times that we as Americans will ultimately overcome and prevail. And as Dr. Martin Luther King used to say, the cross we bear precedes the crown we wear.